Welcome to US Secret Agenda YouTube channel. While Russia's occupation of Ukraine continues, tensions in Eastern Europe and the Baltic Sea are increasing day by day. After the advance of the Russian armies, there was a serious activity in the Baltic Sea at the beginning of last month. Countries that are not members of the North Atlantic Alliance, especially Sweden and Finland, announced their contingency plans. Sweden took its own precautions against a possible Russian naval threat by going to an important military structure in the Baltic Sea. In Finland, with the support of the North Atlantic Alliance and the United States, it increased surveillance of maritime borders in the Baltic Sea while protecting land borders. Following these developments, significant developments have been observed in the relations between NATO and the Baltic states, which are not members of NATO, since the day Russia began its invasion. The United States announced that it would come to the region with several warships and help these countries with maritime border security. Although Russia sent many ships from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea via the Mediterranean Sea, it still kept many warships in the region. At least 13 NATO warships have been spotted in the Baltic Sea today. The fact that these ships were cruising close to Russia's Kaliningrad region worried Russia. It is seen that 13 NATO warships from various countries are headed to the north of the Baltic Sea. The initial destination of the warship group is Stockholm, but the emergence of such a large group of ships has caused serious concerns, especially against the backdrop of extremely strained relations between NATO and Russia. Representatives of the North Atlantic Alliance also confirmed information about the passage of a group of NATO warships of various types to Stockholm, but noted that there was a very strange reason why such a large fleet of military blocks appeared here. According to the announced data, the warships will go to Stockholm to rest after the exercises, and this was not perceived as a strange situation. Among the warships of the NATO fleet are missile guns, corvettes, frigates, etc. There are bots. At the moment, there is no information about the possible escort of a group of warships by Russian warships, due to the absence of official statements from the command of the Russian Navy and the country's Defense Department. It was previously known that Russia conducts military exercises in the Baltic Sea using coastal missile systems. For this reason, it is thought that NATO has prepared such a precautionary plan in the face of a possible threat from Russia. When we take a closer look at the event, we will see that there are much more important lines. Hours after Russian missiles first struck Ukrainian cities on February 24, German naval commander Tarje Schmidt-Eliasson received a warning that 5 warships under his command were going to the former Soviet Republic of Latvia for help, protecting the most vulnerable area of NATO's eastern flank. The rush was part of Germany's effort to send everything that could go overboard to defend an area that military strategists had long seen as the alliance's weakest point, as the Navy's chief patron put it. The ship's sudden departure illustrates how NATO and Germany were thrust into a new reality by the invasion of Russia and faced with what officials, diplomats, intelligence officials and security sources agree is the most serious threat to the collective security of the alliance since the Cold War. Schmidt-Eliasson, based in the German Baltic port of Kiel, spoke to Reuters on the flight deck of the supply ship Elbe. Next to him was a Latvian and a Lithuanian ship moored in sight of the church towers of the Latvian capital, Riga, and ships and sailors from countries such as Denmark, Belgium and Estonia would later join the group. A total of 12 NATO warships, consisting of approximately 600 sailors, will begin demining operations in the coming days. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg described the current period as the new normal on February 16, when intelligence showed an invasion was imminent. It's like going back in time. The NATO alliance, formed in 1949 to defend against the Soviet threat, faces a return to mechanized warfare, a massive increase in defense spending, and potentially a new Iron Curtain over Europe. After trying to find a new post-Cold War role in the fight against terrorism following the September 11 attacks on the United States in 2001 and its withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021, NATO has returned to the defensive against its first foe. But there is a difference. China, which broke away from the Soviet Union during the Cold War, refused to condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which Moscow called a special military operation. The old Cold War plans no longer work, as NATO has expanded eastward since the 1990s, and in 2004 the Baltic states introduced former Soviet states, including Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. In early February, China and Russia issued a powerful joint statement rejecting NATO's expansion in Europe and challenging the Western-led international order. A direct conflict between NATO and Russia could lead to a global conflict. "We have reached a turning point," said retired German General Hans-Lothar Domros, who until 2016 led one of NATO's highest commands in the Dutch town of Brunsum. "We now have China and Russia acting together, boldly challenging the US for global leadership. In the past, we used to say that deterrence works. Now we must ask ourselves the question, is deterrence enough? This is emphasized by Schmidt-Eliasson's mission, a regular exercise set forth by the invasion of Russia. Problem: access. Before the Soviet Union collapsed, NATO could have acted to contain the Soviet Union by blocking the western entrance to the Baltic Sea. This would seal the Soviet Union's Baltic Fleet to prevent warships from reaching the North Sea, where they could attack US supply convoys. The three small countries with a total population of about 6 million have a single land connection with the main territory of the alliance. A corridor of about 65 kilometers is stuck between the heavily armed Russian Kaliningrad region in the west and Belarus in the east. Therefore, Schmidt-Eliasson's aim is to keep the waterway open as a supply line for non-NATO countries Finland and Sweden. Millions of tons of old mines, ammunition and chemical weapons are believed to lie in the shallow Baltic seabed, a legacy of 2 world wars. Old, unexploded or newly laid mines can have an impact beyond destruction, Schmidt-Eliasson said. A mine sighting or rumor could close ports for days as the area swept away, as seen. If this happens in the Baltic, there is a risk of supermarket shelves being empty. Even commercial ships could become a military factor at the Baltic's narrow western entrance, he said, citing scenarios such as the March 2021 incident when the Ever Given container ship shut down traffic through the Suez Canal for days. "You can't blame anyone for such incidents, it cannot be attributed," Admiral Jan Christian Koch, the commander of the German Navy, told Reuters. So what do the experts think about the next target? Very important for the Baltics is the land connection between Kaliningrad and Belarus. Called the Suwalki Gap, its capture would cut through the Baltic states. Putin can quickly seize the Suwalki void, said retired German General Domros, adding that it won't happen today or tomorrow, but it could be in a few years. Not all of Putin's latest actions were predictable. He put Russia's nuclear forces on high alert on February 28, with rhetoric that Stoltenberg said was dangerous, reckless. The Kremlin did not respond to a request for comment. Putin said Russia's over 3 decades of voiced concerns about NATO expansion were ignored by the West, and post-Soviet Russia was humiliated after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. He says NATO is building its army on Ukrainian soil in a way that threatens Russia as an instrument of the United States. On March 11, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu told Putin that the West is strengthening Russia's military forces near its western borders. Putin asked Shoigu to prepare a report on how to respond. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that the Baltic states would be Russia's next target. The Baltic Sea is a large and busy shipping market for containers and other cargo, connecting Sweden, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania and Russia to the rest of the world. This has gone from being a normal peaceful space to one where you walk carefully, said Peter Sand, principal analyst at Zeneta, the air and sea freight rate benchmarking platform. According to Zeneta data, the fees paid by shippers to transport cargo from Hamburg to St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad have fallen by 15% since the occupation, as demand and logistics have been disrupted. For almost 25 years, the West believed that Russia could be tamed with diplomacy and trade to maintain stability and security in Europe. In 1997, NATO and Russia signed a constitutive act, designed to build trust and limit both sides' force presence in Eastern Europe. The alliance has also sought to forge a partnership with Russia, which participated in NATO exercises in the Baltic in 2012, according to retired U.S. Admiral James Fogo, who commanded U.S. and NATO fleets in Europe for almost a decade until 2020. After Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, NATO created small, multinational combat units in Poland and the 3 Baltic states that acted as a forward presence to deter Moscow. But force numbers are designed in such a way that they do not violate the founding law, that hinders NATO's ability to permanently send troops to the Baltic and Poland. We all thought there would be no more an enemy, Admiral Rob Bauer, head of the NATO Military Committee, told Reuters. We are facing a nation that is now showing that it is aggressive, that it has powers that we think will no longer be used. While the numbers are constantly changing, the number of troops under NATO's Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, SACEUR, Todd Wolters, has more than doubled since the invasion of Russia, reaching 40,000, according to NATO diplomats and officials. NATO allies also moved 5 carriers to European waters in Norway and the Mediterranean, increased the number of airborne warplanes in NATO airspace, and more than doubled the size of combat units in the Baltic and Poland. Host nation forces are around 290,000 in the area, but mainly under national control. Diplomats, former officials and experts say the biggest change to NATO's new normal is Germany's reversal of its decades-long policy of low defense spending. Guilty for its wartime past and the resulting pacifism among the population, Germany resisted pressure from the United States to raise it to a NATO target of 2% of economic output. France and Britain both hit the target, but Germany's defense spending was only 1.5% in 2021.